Elon Musk's Starlink failed in Ukraine. A once impossible proposition was this week brought up in Parliamentary by British MP Chris Bryant. Is there a time when we could have to consider penalizing Elon Musk, the American billionaire? The cause? In the conflict of Ukraine, he looks to be playing a double game. The Minister of Defense ignored it. Bryant brought up this, though, for two reasons. First, some of Musk's tweets about Ukraine seem to match some of Vladimir Putin's views, such as Moscow's claim to Crimea. Second, a peculiar tangle has developed around Starlink, Musk's SpaceX company mobile satellite internet service. Investors and decision-makers should pay heed, even though this is still partially shrouded in the fog of war because it has repercussions well beyond Ukraine. We need to go back in time to learn what is going on. Musk agreed to send Starlink terminals into Ukraine after Russia invaded the nation in order to give both the military and people access to the internet. These tiny devices connect to SpaceX's satellites in order to function, even though they were originally designed for the civilian market. Musk should be praised for this, as one of the main attractions of Starlink is that it develops a distributed system or one that is dispersed. Compared to anything centered on a phone tower, this is significantly more difficult to take out with missiles. And with almost 25,000 Starlinks currently present in Ukraine, according to Musk, this network has maintained critical governmental and humanitarian operations, including banks and hospitals. The Ukrainian army has also made considerable use of Starlinks to construct its clever, well-funded campaign. Starlink has developed into a vital information conduit that connects drones used to aim artillery strikes against Russian forces to hospitals that have been severely damaged. Starlink has allowed Ukraine's aerial reconnaissance units to communicate with drones that have destroyed multiple Russian tanks, mobile command posts, and other military vehicles. Additionally, Kyiv has provided computers to local governments, fire services, and schools. By the end of March, 590 hospitals and clinics had Starlink terminals installed to keep them connected during the war, according to the Ukrainian Ministry of Health. But lately, strange things have been happening. Musk abruptly stated in a tweet last month that Starlink is meant for peaceful use only, even though American officials stated that SpaceX is selling thousands to NATO groups at ever-increasing prices. In a subscriber letter sent out Monday, Ian Bremer, the director of the risk consulting Eurasia Group, said that Musk had admitted to him that he had turned down Ukrainian requests to activate coverage in Crimea out of concern for the Russian retaliation. "Nobody should trust Bremer," Musk shot back. Bremer's assertion has been supported by other officials. After that, in late September, Starlink terminals ceased to function in regions of eastern and southern Ukraine that Putin claims to have annexed, but which the Ukrainian army has since reclaimed. Officials in Kyiv claim that this has led to certain catastrophic circumstances. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or perhaps a computer error or Russian jamming. However, informed Ukrainian observers question whether SpaceX representatives intentionally slowed Ukraine's progress. The Russian television personality Vladimir Solovyov last week added to the rumors by claiming that Musk was adopting a pro-Russian posture to prevent attacks on his satellites. Musk's team was questioned about this, but they did not respond. Musk had tweeted that the coverage issue was secret. SpaceX had given Ukraine $80 million in subsidies, and he wanted peace. But coverage appears to have mostly resumed since the faults were initially noticed last week. And in response to Mikhailo Fedorov, the minister of Ukraine's digital transformation, praising Starlinks this week, Musk tweeted that he was glad to support Ukraine. But even if it's still unclear what exactly happened, or didn't, the affair raises troubling issues for Western officials and investors. How much will US politicians allow an erratic billionaire to have power over everything from social media to war abroad? When private enterprises work with military organizations or enter the space industry, how should investors value the associated policy risks? Could SpaceX be subject to Defense Production Act enforcement by the US government? Is Musk's conversation with the Russian government, as reported by Eurasia, appropriate? There is also a broad lesson regarding diversification and utility reliance. This year, Ukraine became reliant on Starlink for internet access because it needed to respond quickly. The system was superior to alternatives, and it was initially fairly affordable. Fedorov observes that it has also brought about great advantages. But this dependence also raises the possibility of vulnerability, much like Germany's prior strong reliance on Russian gas or the US's reliance on Taiwanese computer chips. There is a possibility that Ukraine would eventually find a solution if it needed to lessen its exposure to a billionaire in the future. However, other small countries like Taiwan or Estonia, who worry they might someday need to defend themselves and require distributed internet infrastructure, will be closely monitoring the events in the interim. Additionally, the story should serve as a strong reminder to all the company executives, investors, and policymakers. The extent to which we live in a digital world where platforms are essential to the economy and much else is highlighted in stark relief by the conflict in Ukraine. Thus, in these unsteady times, it is crucial to consider who controls them and if we can rely on them. When broken, trust is difficult to rebuild. Diversity is important. Hopefully, Musk will prove his dependability and Starlink will keep working well for Ukraine. However, if other bizarre developments take place, Bryant's query might not appear quite as absurd. We should all think about our individual digital dependence in the interim.